Is he speaking altogether for our sake? Yes, for our sake it was written. Because the plowman ought to plow in hope. The thresher to thresh in hope, sharing the crops. If we sowed spiritual things in you, is it too much if we reap material things from you? The Word of God is far above rubies. The fruit that's born is born eternally. And so the principle there. And it's always a blessing, when I teach this, because I'm so well provided for. And the deacons in this church here are just so abundant in providing for my family. But I think about all the men that came in this week, and how many of them are working outside their churches, or how many of them their wives are working, and how many of them, and it's a characteristic of our days. We are in difficult days in the end times. And I expect that that's going to become more normal the darker things get. In terms of bivocational pastors, or their working wives, or the other circumstances, outside support in some capacity or another. And I appreciate that. When temporal life non-priorities remain in preeminence, in other words, if you don't get them ordered correctly, when temporal life vetoes spiritual life, then a couple of things happen. And we're told in Matthew 13 that fruitfulness gets choked out. Fruitfulness gets choked out. When temporal life is out of whack, lifted over spiritual life. In the parable of the sower, this was the thorny ground Christian. In the thorny ground, any fruit that might come up and get born gets choked out because of the weeds. And we're told there that it's the concerns of the world, the worries of riches, the wrong kind of worries, the wrong kind of caring. Something else that happens is that we have a negligent watchfulness. A negligent watchfulness. We're supposed to be on the alert, but we don't have the spiritual capacity to be on the spiritual alert because we're all wrapped up in temporal life issues. And we've lost our spiritual watchfulness. We become negligent watchlessness in that application there. There was a third and final division on temporal life caring, but I'm going to skip over that. Secondly, we developed neighborly caring. This is the Good Samaritan and the neighborly caring. Even if you think, well, what am I going to get out of this? That's not the point. We don't care for the Samaritan because we think he deserves it or we're going to get some return. We care because it's right. Because it's an application of agape love. Because God cared for us, but we didn't deserve it. And appreciate the entire story on that. And the parable of the Good Samaritan, the agapao love application that we find there. Love your neighbor. And the issues related to that. I'll skip through this part here too. It's a great big long Greek word there. We'll skip over that. The third development, betrayal caring. This is where we're betrayed, we're delivered over, and don't even care about it. If God let it happen, then it's His will. Don't worry about what you're going to say. Don't panic over it. He's put you where you need to be. And the testimony He gives you, He gives you is going to be wonderful. We must beware. We should still remain unworried about our testimony under persecution. We may have been given over. There's a play on words there. Paradidomi is to betray or to be given over. But then where you hand off a trust is also paradidomi. And the testimony He gives us is also a provision. And that's why we're in that position. How many people had a chance to witness to Pontius Pilate during the time of his governorship of Judea? I don't suspect there were that many at all. But on one particular occasion, I know there was a testimony given. See, when else would a Galilean carpenter had a chance to come face to face with the Roman procurator of the Judean province? So God put him where he needed to be when he needed to be. People non-caring. This was the fourth realm. Let me skip by that. We had marital life caring. Marital life caring in 1 Corinthians 7. And this is a passage, too, that I think Paul was teaching the benefits to being single, in that your interests are not divided. That if you're a single person, then you can have an undivided devotion to the Lord. But the married person, the interests are divided. And you have a care, you have a concern for your spouse. If you don't, then I suspect you're going to be single not too long from now. The marital status probably won't linger. All right? That's not a problem in chapter 7. It's described as a good thing. Your interests are divided. They're supposed to be divided. They're supposed to be divided. And all of the blessings that come with that. Because when you have a helpmate, when the two can walk as heirs together, the grace of life is not 1 + 1 = 2. So much more than that. The power that can come with a tandem of a man and his wife when both are glorifying Christ, when both are walking in the light, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. Someday I'll get a mathematician to explain to me how that can happen, but maybe an earthly mathematician won't do so well with it because it's a spiritual function. And I appreciate on Friday we had rectangle discussions every day this week, and the last one, the 5th one, was about family. Was about the pastor's wives and about their children, and about the struggles and about the issues that, with the PKs, the pastor's kids, and the things they liked and the things they hated about growing up in a church and different things, and how valuable our wives are and how we need them, and how whatever treasure might be left over the bonfire of the judgment seat of Christ, whatever gold, silver, precious stones are left, I just hand them to Sharon because it's hers. If it wasn't for her, there'd be nothing that would happen here at Austin Bible Church. So we think about marital life caring, and there's a lot of principles that come out of that. But let's spend the rest of our time in the ecclesiastical life caring, which was point F. And it starts with a pastor, but it includes the entire body. And so for this, let's go to John chapter 10. How many of the pastors this last week were in the Gospel of John? What a blessing that the Holy Spirit coordinated everything that took place here over these past 8 days, and how the impact of this, like inspiring 66 books and over a 1,500-year span of time, it can clearly handle inspiring 23 messages over 8 days. And it is really a delight, a fellowship in the Word, to pray together and all the things that God has opened up for us. But in John 10, we have the Good Shepherd. And even before the Good Shepherd, we got the information here as it relates to the thief and all who came before him. We want to find out, is the shepherd a hireling? Is he in it for the money? Does he have a false motivation? Or is he a true shepherd, shepherding for the glory of Jesus Christ? First of all, pastoral caring is not for sale at any price. John 10:13. And what I like here, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who is not the owner of the sheep, he sees the wolf coming, and he leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he's a hired hand, and he's not concerned about the sheep. And that's our term, not concerned. It's a proper concern. It should be there. Pastoral caring is not for sale at any price. The shepherd that's just in it for the money, well, if it gets too rough, there's other ways to make money. Okay? There's greener pastures. There's elsewhere. That wolf looks kind of dangerous. My skin might be at risk here. Okay? And of course, if I flee, then the sheep's skin is at more risk, but I don't really care about that. The hireling doesn't care about the sheep, but not his sheep. Right? There's a difference there. And I think, and I enjoy the way this was phrased here, not for sale at any price. I think about the care, and I know Ralph set this pattern, and I knew that I could call him up at any time, and Ralph, can I come? Can I pray with you? I got a question. Can I pray? Can I ask you something? And it was not, make an appointment, and $120 an hour. We'll counsel here. We'll provide the... No, not a hireling. Shepherding. And that's a big difference. Because you understand, if the motivation is false, now what were all the motivations in 1 Timothy, right? The hireling was only one aspect, but he couldn't be, the overseer could not be addicted to wine, had to be a one-woman man. He couldn't be, looking at, chasing after ladies and doing all kinds of stuff, or all of the requirements that are there in 1 Timothy chapter 3. Any one of those is a veto. Any one of those disqualifies a man from the office of overseer. And I think you could take them also, too, and plug them into John 10 here and understand, not just the hireling issue. There's a lot of things that the good shepherd here would not have a part of. But the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. And the good shepherd has sacrificial love. The good shepherd ministers not for his own skin, but because the sheep have that. That's his assignment there as related to the sheep. Pastoral caring is a spiritual anguish. Pastoral caring is a spiritual anguish that surpasses any earthly affliction. 2 Corinthians 11:28. 2 Corinthians 11:28. And this might be worth a discussion as far as how loosely we use the word care. I think sometimes it's diminished because we throw it away too cheaply. Do you care if, or did you care if that Florida pastor burned that Quran or not? Was it a big deal to you? Did you care? I watched a little bit of the news. I'll confess to that. Do you care if Muslims build a monument victory mosque at Ground Zero? Do you care? We use care. Do you care if the Seahawks win today? No, I don't care about that. Do you care? Wait till I hit your team. Okay? But then you have to ask, well, how much do I care? Do I care so much that this thing not happening hurts with an anguish? Okay? Because if the Seahawks lose, I'm used to that. It doesn't really hurt with an anguish. Okay? I think sometimes we throw away the term care too cheaply, whereby we find out that, okay, I had a slight preference, but I didn't truly care to the point that the anguish of its loss hurts. The anguish of its loss hurts. And when we say we care for one another, does the anguish of the loss hurt when this one another you say you care for has departed? Part of the body's been amputated. A believer's drifting in their faith or struggling in their hunger and not around like they used to be and not active walking with the Lord like they used to be. Do you care? Well, is there a spiritual anguish to testify to that care?